Christian Deron.
Hey everyone, this is Christian Deron, and you know what? I have the pleasure to introduce one of my great good friends, one of my strong Christian brothers, and one of my great accountability buddies. He has been instrumental in my growth as a Christian for over, say, 5 months now. He's a pretty awesome guy. He's also a conservative Christian. And I consider him to be a A-type personality, alpha male personality type. Awesome. His name is Matt. Matt, go ahead and tell them how old you are.
Well, I am 28. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. I know Deron. We met through work, and yeah, we just started chatting one day, and we realized we agreed on just about all the same issues politically and theologically. So, yeah, we really hit it off, and I'm definitely a fan and a supporter of his channel.
All right, all right. So you guys, Matt actually introduced the idea to me at work today because, we work together and we serve Christ, pouring into other people's lives, just being that light for them. And so he introduced the topic today about the inconsistencies or just how self-contradictory or just how hypocritical the liberal ideology actually is in theory. And so I was just like, wow. So we're both technically considered millennials. So we decided to just title this video Conservative Millennials.
Well, I mean, in short, I follow Jesus. I'm a diehard Christian.
Amen.
I'm sold out to spread God's kingdom. That's my one life goal. I mean, my life was changed by Jesus when I was 19. I struggled with anxiety and depression for years. And it wasn't until I surrendered my life to Christ that I really found true freedom and a purpose in life. Because before that, I didn't know what the heck my life meant. I just felt like I was going in circles and living in my own little world that I had boxed into. So yeah, over the years, the Holy Spirit really thawed me out in a sense. And yeah, I have a huge passion just to see people changed by Christ. Evangelism is a huge passion of mine. I love hitting the streets of Minneapolis and just praying for people. And
That's right.
Yeah, I have a group of friends we go out with a couple times a month at least. And more often than not, we see someone be saved or even be healed sometimes of like a disease or an injury. And, it's just really cool to see the Holy Spirit work. So yeah, that's where my heart's at. And yeah, like going off that apologetics and, politics and, these are things that are very important to following Jesus too, because the reality is we live in a world where like we're being hit with messages all the time through the media, through the universities, and we can't just respond to everything with I love Jesus. That's just not gonna not gonna answer everything. It's great to love Jesus. Obviously love is what is most important, but we're supposed to be prepared to give an answer for the reason for our faith, and we're supposed to demolish bad arguments that set themselves up against Christ. So that is why I'm definitely passionate about apologetics and things that are politically related when need be. So,
man, that's a great introduction, and I'm glad you wanted to preface with that. So, Matt, now what you brought to my attention at work was a great contradiction. Okay, you said the gay movement versus the transsexual movement. Now, with the gay movement, you actually, I'm glad that you expounded on this. You said now they always say that you're born that way, but with the transsexual, movement, they say they believe that they are that way, so it is. But you said both of those views conflict.
Exactly.
So yeah, go ahead and just tell them a little bit why are those conflicting views?
Yeah, I mean, I think the issue here, it's not that any particular group of people are the problem. It's just what we're saying here is the argument is the problem. The ideology is the problem, because that's what we do here. We're all about hating the ideologies and the misleading teachings. It's not about going against any particular person or people group. So I just want to make that clear. But Yeah, I think you see in the gay movement this big emphasis that, oh, I was born that way. You can't ask me to change. You can't ask me to change, my sexual orientation because I was born that way. Whereas in the trans camp, you hear almost the exact opposite argument. Like, oh, I was born a man, I was born a woman, but I feel like, I feel this way. I want to do something else.
Hmm.
So therefore, I'm going to do it. So one side's putting the emphasis on, oh, I was born this way. No matter what I want to do, that doesn't matter because I was born that way. Even if I want to be straight, I shouldn't because I was born gay. Whereas on the other camp is saying, oh, well, I was born a man or woman, but I want to be the opposite, so therefore I should do it. So they're a complete contradiction of each other. And I just don't understand at all how these liberals can be intellectually honest and uphold both arguments at the same time. And honestly, I don't think people in both these camps even talk to each other, honestly. I think these are two separate movements. I'm sure there is some overlap, but
Yeah, there is.
Yeah. But honestly, I think the people who really are pushing these arguments don't really talk to each other because they don't make any sense at all. And unfortunately, the reason a lot of these issues come into the spotlight is all just for political reason, anyways.
Yes,
And,
exactly.
there's money involved, there's
Exactly.
power involved, and
Exactly.
that's a whole nother discussion for another time. But
Mhm.
there's no denying there's a huge contradiction here, and the arguments don't make any sense.
Awesome, bro. Awesome. Because here's the thing that even makes it more, I could say, insidious with the liberals' agenda to just basically get more votes is that they are basically taking advantage of these people that I'm going to say these are vulnerable adults. Okay.
Mhm.
When you suffer from identity crisis or any what sort or any sort of whatever like that, I believe you're considered a vulnerable adult and you need specialized treatment.
Oh yeah.
The issue needs to be addressed. But what does the left do? They pander to this and they say, no, 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 there's nothing wrong with you. And if a person says there's something wrong with you, there's something wrong with them. But hey, vote Democrat
Right.
because we care about you.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's for the gay and the transsexual community. But they do
Yeah.
have the one movement where they all lumped together.
Right. They lump it together, the whole
Uh-huh.
LGBT.
Yeah, exactly. I
but-
forgot the acronym. That's why I didn't say it.
Well, now it's like LGBTQA.
Yeah,
They add a lot of,
including all the different genders you can be.
Yeah, it seems like they're always expanding. But at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, I just don't think the people leading the charge. I think these are two separate camps, and they have different arguments that contradict each other. And and I understand, like I'll just say this: if somebody's not a Christian, doesn't share our beliefs, like I don't expect them to share our beliefs if they're not a Christian. But everyone is free to choose their own path. But
Mm-hmm.
I think what's really going on here is, a lot of this it's all political.
It is.
The Democrat Party, they
It
push
is.
these talking points, they push these agendas. They don't care about people. It's all just about getting votes, and it's all about appealing to people's emotions and knee-jerk reactions. And I think that's where you get a lot of these talking points that just contradict each other.
And also, too, just to say, a little bit off topic, and I digress here slightly, is that, you know what? There's going to be some liberals who are going to watch this video, and they're going to automatically just say, you're a racist.
Oh, yeah.
Not me, though, but they're going to say, you're a racist because you're white. And with you being white, you shouldn't have a voice. You shouldn't even have an opinion because you're white, and white privilege actually strips you of that. But anyway, so I digress there for a second.
That
So,
goes back to those
uh-huh.
emotionally charged talking points.
Yeah,
They're
exactly.
champions of those.
Exactly.
If they can slap a label on you, slap something to
That's
discredit
right.
you, and obviously being a white male Christian immediately discredits you in a lot of ways in the liberal camp because you don't get to identify with any big civil rights movement of minorities, and your people were oppressors. And I mean, of course there were white men who did some horrible things in America's history, but if you look at world history as a whole, every people group did something horrible at some point.
Exactly.
You shouldn't define anyone by what their people have done in the past.
I mean, if we were to use that kind of argument that the liberals are actually using, they say, well, the history is ugly. Well, what about the blacks? Okay, the Africans that actually sold Africans to whites.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you got these European slave owners. Yeah, I mean,
If
they
we
were,
use that argument.
the slave traders, the slave owners. Yeah, they were.
So are blacks
rotten.
evil? So they should say that blacks are evil too, then, right?
Well, two sides of the coin. It's like you have the Europeans. I mean, they were sleazy in the slave trade, but they were doing it because of these African tribe leaders were selling their own people.
Exactly.
So, you have two sides of the coin here.
And they were Muslim.
Yeah.
just to mention that, it's a
Yeah.
historical fact. So also too, there was another argument that you mentioned. Now this is something I love that Ben Shapiro talks about. What's his name? Dinesh Souza or something like that, or Souza Dinesh. I don't know if I said it backwards,
Mhm.
whatever. But so social justice versus relativism.
hmm Okay, I think this is honestly something that pisses me off the most. Like, because we're just talking about pure ideologies at this point, Like, again, like, I'm sympathetic to people who come from a different background as me because I don't expect them to hold my views if they're not conditioned and, in the
Mhm.
same way I am. So I can at least, like, understand why they believe what they believe if they're being told one thing all their life. But with this one, I mean, there's just a huge contradiction in these two ideologies. So let me say this, like, in these universities, you get these liberal professors on one end of the spectrum. They're really advocating social justice, help the poor, help the minorities, help the disadvantaged. We got to advocate for these people. On the other end, they're pushing, oh, truth is relative. What's true for you is true for you. What's true for me is true for me. There's no one has any reason to say there's a universal right and wrong. Like, you can't tell somebody what they should and shouldn't do. Keep your morality off me, Hello, how can you on one end say we should help the poor, we should be compassionate towards these people, and on the other end say truth is relative? Like, if you really believe, like, truth is relative, like, if you really believe, like, there is no universal right and wrong, you're in no position to tell somebody they should help the poor. Like, okay, I'll say this, like, to you liberals out there who believe truth is relative, let me ask you this. How can you say what the owners in the South did, like the slave owners in the South in the 1800s, how can you say what they did was wrong? How can you say what Hitler did was wrong? Like, how can you say racism is wrong or, like, oppression of the poor is wrong if you believe truth is relative? But you get these college professors spewing out this BS, they're talking to both sides of their mouth here, and it does not make any sense. It is not intellectually honest at all, but they expect you just to believe it just because they're saying it. And, it's just appealing to those emotional arguments, in both two different camps that do, again, they're not talking with each other clearly. These moral relativists in the philosophy departments are clearly not talking to the social justice warriors about what their core beliefs actually entail. Like, so there's a huge disconnect here, and I just feel like these liberals are not held accountable to this, especially in the universities.
That's right.
So,
Oh man, bro. You said on the other hand, you brought up the argument. You bagged the question. You're just like, well, how is it you teach evolution, which basically promotes survival of the fittest.
right.
But then you go on the other side and you say, wait, social justice.
Right.
Social justice.
Yeah.
So why do those conflict again?
Well,
I love that.
It goes back to the moral relativism thing. I mean, this is a slightly different ideology, but it's still a bunch of crap. I mean, like, here's the thing. Like, evolution at its core says, the weak are not fit to survive. Survival of the fittest says if you're weak, if you're genetically mutated, like if you're born disabled, or even if, like, you're just poor, ostracized in society, you're sick, or, who knows, maybe society doesn't like you, whatever it is, if you're unfit to survive, like if you're more of a liability than an asset to society, you should die off so the gene pool can better itself. So if you're a liberal who believes there's no God and believes evolution is the ultimate truth of where we all came from, you are once again in no position to advocate for the poor. You cannot say we should help the poor because according to your ideology, they should all just die off. And I'll tell you this, like, social Darwinism,
Yes.
That is what led, like, a lot of these crazy, like, movements of the past. Like Hitler, he killed the Jews because
Yes.
he believed he he was
And
doing
eugenics,
the
yes.
gene pool,
Yes.
the universal gene pool, a favor by killing them off.
Yes.
Even a lot of like slave traders in the past believe this. They believe blacks were closer to apes than to man. So they would put black people in cages and parade them around in circuses and say, oh, look at this ape man, because they believed, they were just lower on the evolutionary scale. So again, it's a huge contradiction between these two theories. So again, I challenge you, liberal atheists, like, if you believe there's no God and that evolution is the ultimate truth and ideology you buy into, how can you advocate for the poor? Like,
That's right.
what universal
That's right.
claim do you have that we should advocate for the
That's
poor
right.
and the disadvantaged? Because according to your ideology, the mentally handicapped, the disabled, the poor, anyone who is a liability to society and genetics should die off so this world can just become better according to your beliefs. So
That's right.
again, it's just a huge inconsistency, and the people who teach this crap are never held accountable.
Man, dude, that is awesome, bro. That is just so awesome. And here's the thing, is that liberalism is inconsistent. It is self-refuting.
Mm-hmm.
Under thorough analysis, it is self-refuting. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It implodes.
At the end of the day, it's all about appealing to emotions. Here's honestly what I think liberalism, Western liberalism, is at its core. It's about getting power. It's about making the government the ultimate authority and appealing to people's emotions under the basis of love and compassion so that they'll support their policies, which really don't help anyone. Like, I'll give you an example. And I mean, you talk about this stuff all the time, but, liberals talk a really nice game about helping blacks and, immigrants and minority groups. Well, let's look at the African American community. I mean, since the civil rights movement, what major strides has the community by and large made by voting Democrat? I mean, let's look at the inner cities. They are hellholes. And why is that? It's because they've been run by Democrats for the last 60 years. Because you know what their policies do? Like, these liberal politicians, they go to the black communities and they say, society's against you. You'll never be able to achieve the American dream because society's racist and they hate you. So you know what? You need us. Like, you need us to have a ghost of a chance in life. So here's some welfare. Here's some programs. And what the programs do is it essentially creates this mindset that they can't go out and get a job. They can't provide for their family. It encourages single parent motherhood.
Yep.
It breaks up families, and that leads to more crime. And you look at the statistics of the African American community, like, they have much higher crime rates, higher drug use, higher obesity rates,
dropout rates.
Yeah, dropout rates. I mean, it's horrific.
Incarceration. I mean, all across the board.
And these liberals say, "Oh, we're helping African Americans. We care." Really? Well, your policies have been doing the exact opposite for the last 50 years. Honestly, if I think Martin Luther King were alive today, he would be pissed if he saw what these liberal Democrats are doing. Like, I mean, I love the quote by Ben Carson. Was he run? He's in charge of the housing and development.
The urban development. Yep.
Yeah. I love a quote by him. He says, "White liberals are the most racist people there are because they put blacks in a box."
That's right.
And they insist that they think one way.
Exactly.
And if they don't, like my friend Deron here, they attack them as being illegitimate or like an Uncle Tom. And the whole time, they deny that their policies are destroying blacks.
Exactly.
So that's what liberals do. That's what white liberals do. And like, how is this any less like destructive on the community than the plantation was hundreds of years ago?
That's right.
So be careful with these liberals, because they, like, if you're black and you, for generations you've been told like, oh, the Democrats care about you. No, they don't. And I'm not saying Republicans have been perfect. I think Republicans have largely dropped the ball just by, they failed to communicate their message, and, they've given up on trying to reach a lot of minorities. So I'm not saying these
career politicians who really don't care. They're only there for that silver dollar.
Yeah. So, I don't think I'm
John
saying,
McCain.
like the John McCains and like the George W. Bushes and, all these like establishment gurus. But so I'm not saying the Republican Party has been perfect in recent years either, but I'll tell you one thing, the Democrat Party, like, if you're like what you call a minority group in America, and you think the Democrat Party cares about you, think again, because they don't give a crap about you. I'm just gonna say it.
Man,
They're
and,
trying to take
oh,
advantage
man.
of you.
And this is what I always tell each and every person that is a liberal, because sadly, according to statistics and plus demographic location, is that majority of the people that vote Democrat are in the inner city, in the ghettos. And so this is what I always tell people: if you want to look at the reality of your ideology, okay, the political party that you believe in, take a look outside.
Yeah.
Look at your ugly reality.
Oh yeah.
All these inner cities are controlled by Democrats.
Oh yeah. Yeah, look at Baltimore, look at St. Louis, look at Detroit. You know, are these places you would want to raise your kids?
Chicago.
Yeah, Chicago. I mean,
LA.
These,
I mean, oh my goodness, especially New York.
yeah.
I mean, you guys, this is completely asinine to me. This is the epitome of insanity, because they think they can keep doing the same thing and get different results. Look, the same policies, these liberal policies, has destroyed the black community, the black family, and now it's becoming more systemic. Now it's destroying the white family, it's destroying the Asian family, the Mexican family, etc., etc., etc. Liberalism is the enemy to the American family.
Oh yeah, and
to the establishment too, in its entirety. So
yeah, and the reason Democrats always push amnesty for Hispanic immigrants because they just want to get them. They want to get them on the same system that's been destroying the blacks for generations. It's all about money. It's all about power. Democrats don't care about civil rights at all. They care about votes. That's what needs to be said.
Don't.
Like if we really want like minority groups to succeed in this country, like what they need to be told is like, you can make it. Like you can get a job. You can succeed. Like. This country has opportunity for you.
Exactly.
And, I'm not denying that racism doesn't exist. I know it still
exists. But it's not as prevalent as they try to make it seem.
Right. Like
it's not.
It's not. We're not in the 1950s anymore.
Exactly.
Things have gotten better. And of course, there is still prejudice. I'm not going to be ignorant and say it doesn't exist, but it doesn't have to stop you. It doesn't. Someone's idiocy and racism does not have to stop you from earning a good living.
That's a false narrative too, because they say, well, because the amount of racism, it stops me from moving forward in life. I can't progress. No, this, like as you said before, this is not the 1950s. You have tons of blacks or minorities. They have their own TV shows.
Oh yeah.
Right? I mean, their own radio stations.
Yeah.
And I mean, tons of business owners who are minorities. So where is the systematic racism, that they also claim, and even in our most prestigious institutions of learning? Oh, it's systematic racism. But yet they cannot provide one single account of systematic racism.
Right.
How has a white man ever stood in my way and say, no, because you're black, you can't be a business owner? I own two businesses. So if a white man was seriously oppressing me, I wouldn't own two businesses right now.
Right, exactly.
Seriously though.
Yeah.
So I mean, we have to get with reality. Per capita, if you are of African descent, blacks in the United States, and here's the ugly truth, we have nothing to complain about, because per capita, as far as being of African descent, we are the richest in the world. We have the most opportunity. How come tons of Africans come here, and we work with tons of Africans, they come here and they say the same thing: you black Americans need to stop playing the victim card. You have way more freedom than we even have back in our country. You have way more options. I mean, you are privileged. We all are. All Americans are privileged.
Yeah.
We are one of the wealthiest nations in the world. We don't have any excuse. If we fail, it's because we chose to. No one can hold you back. Only you. No one. Either someone will provide a way, which is very rare, but you have to make a way in the United States. You have to. And it requires hard work, but that goes against everything that liberalism teaches. Liberalism teaches you that, you know what? People are going to cater to your needs. You do not have to mature as an adult. You can rely on the government. So you are, AKA, as Pastor Terry says, you're a titty baby. You want to sit up there and you want to suck off welfare. And then they make it hard for you to get off welfare.
Yeah. Well, that's why they hate people
so cyclical.
That's why they hate people like Ben Carson so much, is because he he grew up in that sort of life. He's from the inner city, just
Myself.
like you. You know
Yes.
what it's like, and that's why they demonize people like him. They attacked his story as being fake. You know why? Because liberals are absolutely horrified of people who come from this background and see the light. Because if enough people start speaking up and lead a modern day revolution, let me put it this way. If the black vote split 50-50, even 50-50, no Democrat would ever win
not
again.
have a chance. That's right.
Yeah, so that's okay.
Change the tide.
That's why the politics get so ugly, like
That's
the
right.
racial politics,
That's
is
right.
because the Democrats rely so heavily on African Americans voting for
divisive
them.
speech and all that, brother.
And if it's even slightly competitive, there goes the Democratic Party. So again, I encourage all of you, like minority voters especially, like take this into mind. Like the Democrat Party does not have your best interests in mind at all. Look at the history of the
Never
party.
have. They've never had anyone's best interest in mind.
Yeah, like look at the history of the Democratic Party. They were never champions of civil rights up until LBJ passed the Civil Rights Act. And even then, when he said it, he was behind closed doors, said, I'll have these N-words voting Democrats for the next, 100 years? Yeah. So, I mean, this party does not care about you.
That's right.
So, again, if you have been voting Democrat, reconsider. Even if you vote independent, I'm not saying you have to flock to the Republican Party like it's this utopia. Yeah, but I agree with them more than the Democratic Party.
Right.
Yeah, so it's just important to know history and look at what these Democratic programs have done for the poor, for minorities, to the inner cities. Like, okay, it was so funny in this last election. Bernie Sanders, he was looking at statistics in Baltimore. He said I forget which African country he was comparing to. I think it might have been a city in Kenya, or it was like a poor African country. He's like, it's outrageous that Baltimore, the quality of life in Baltimore is just as bad or even a little bit worse than this African city. And the ironic thing was, Baltimore has been run by liberal Democrats for the last 6 decades, and they've been implementing the exact kinds of policies that he wanted to do in the whole country.
So you're saying that was just a poor source of reference because it just didn't help him out whatsoever.
Right. Like he's advocating policies that caused this problem in the first place.
But here's the thing, you guys, because we're gonna wrap this up. This is what I'm going to conclude with, because here's the ugly truth. If you actually did your fact checking and you actually conducted your research, there's no way you would be a liberal.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, because if you knew the truth, you would not vote Democrat. There's no way if you knew the truth, you would vote Democrat. There is no way you would have even thought of supporting Hillary Clinton if you knew the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, man, it just shocks me. But even this, okay, we have so many professors out there. They can express themselves and they can explain themselves so eloquently, though, right? That people get lost by hearing, these huge words. Oh, yeah, this person has an amazing vernacular. Like, oh, wow, he must be smart. But the guy has said nothing the entire time. Yeah. And that's what a lot of liberals get sucked into.
Yeah.
They hear this kind of chit chatter that just twinkles the ear, and they just bite on to whatever this person is feeding them.
Right.
Without actually doing any research. And that's the number one cause of liberalism. This is why it spreads, because they feel, and this is what I run into with so many liberals. They don't do any research, but yet they have an opinion. And they treat their opinions if it is an informed opinion.
Yeah.
An informed opinion, it's not the same as an opinion.
Well, even like the other day, Deron and I were in a coffee shop hanging out, and we run into one of Deron's old friends, and she's definitely a liberal.
Flaming liberal.
Yeah, flaming liberal. And she was talking about, how with Colin Kaepernick and kneeling, during the national anthem during the football games, and she was basically talking like a social justice warrior, trying to position herself as this champion for minorities. And we both just confronted her and hit her with all these statistics, like, oh, so you think you're helping out minorities by voting Democrat?
What was her argument, though? Remember, she said that the Star Spangled Banner was racist.
Yeah, I mean, she kept going back to that. like that was like the crux of her argument. And, but the thing is, like, when we hit her with all these other facts about how like minority groups have suffered under democratic rule, like she had no idea about that stuff. She was like, really? She's like, I have to look into that. You know, like she was like, because she'd never been told this at all. You know, you could tell she was just repeating what she probably heard on MSNBC or heck, even like a Family Guy episode or whatever. You know, like it's just like
sad.
A lot of this indoctrination is just
Sad.
It's just kind of a subtle cultural indoctrination. Is more, yeah, again, it's all about emotional appeal.
Yes, it is.
Like when I was in college, I had an abnormal psych class, and my professor was a flaming liberal. And every day he started off his class by making fun of something that like the Republicans in Congress did. And he actually had us do a paper. We had to diagnose George W. Bush.
Wow.
And you know, so you know, this was a psychology class. You know, this politics has nothing to do with it, but he's taking his liberal viewpoints and pushing them into this class. And I think that's how a lot of people are getting indoctrinated because, like, oh, well, my smart college professor made a lot of jokes about Bush or the Republicans in Congress. Okay, yeah, the Democrat Party must be the way to go then, you know, because he's a smart guy and he said the Republicans were stupid or, you know, or conservatives are stupid. So that I think that's like the level of indoctrination that's happening a lot of times. It's not about the facts. It's not about the real statistics. It's not about going to the cities. I mean, here's the other thing. How many of these liberals do you see actually going to the inner cities and volunteering at soup kitchens or, you know, or helping, like actually spending time with homeless people?
Yeah, don't give them any ideas.
I'm just saying, the only people I ever see doing that stuff are conservatives, like Christian conservatives led by the Holy Spirit. Like, I don't see, I've never run into any liberal on the street being like, oh, hey, or like, you know, I'm going to spend time with Joe, the homeless guy, and really hear his story and help him out. Like, you know.
And here's the thing, you guys. We're going to conclude with this because I think I'm going to break this video down to 2 parts, right? So the only reason why they are liberal is because we are conservative. We make the money, they take it from us, and they spend it. Well, those days are going to be over. Thank you, President Trump. Ah, such a great president, right? Love my president. So I just want to just take this time and just say, God bless President Trump, his entire administration. God bless the United States. God bless the entire Western world and also the entire world. And I pray that the Holy Spirit just reach out to each and every person who is willing to answer the call. Because the call has been there. I just pray that the Holy Spirit put on your heart to answer it.
Amen.
So God bless you, and thank you all for watching. Matt, man, thanks for being here, bro. I mean, because you said everything, bro. I didn't even have to say anything. I think I'm going to invite you back on. I'm going to let you have your own little entire video. I'm serious, bro, because you shut this one down.
Well, love to come back.
That's right.
It's great to be here.
So this is Christian Deron saying this. If you like this video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. But most importantly, share, utilizing every platform of social media. God bless you. You guys take care. Bye-bye.